Hello everybody, can I just remind you, don't forget to vote for Project of the Year. Have you used your voting chips? The voting machine is out in the front foyer. We're going to restart at 1:10, and also Gardner Hill are out in the front foyer if you'd like to sign up to give those few pennies from your salary at the end of each month. So we'll be starting at 1:10. Thank you. I saw there was a gap on your stand. It was completely singing. There was a platform that was the honour.
Yeah, so there was two bamboo toothbrushes, which was like a Defra and Rock prize, and then a smart, like fully sustainable Bluetooth speaker. And someone has nicked it on whilst we've been on dinner.
Do you want me to make an announcement about the person who's nicked?
I didn't know if you get a chance to like make a bit of a comedy quit.
Right, I can do it in the introduction. I'll do it in the introduction.
If anyone's picked up the prize from the sustainability stand by accident, please can we have our Bluetooth speaker?
Go back. Good line.
Sorry.
That's all right. just to say we'll be starting again in 4 minutes' time. 4 minutes, thank you. One minute to go. If you can start coming through to the AGM from the marketplace, that would be really helpful. Thank you. If I could have all of the NAViGO board members into the auditorium, into their seats, that would be good. Thank you. I can see that the board members are joining us in dribs and drabs. I know Mike and Emma are here somewhere, and Anna, Janine. if we can all come through to the auditorium for the AGM. I'm particularly looking for board members. Okay, we'll make a start. The marketplace will be closed during the AGM, but can I ask the stall holders not to start packing away during the AGM because it creates too much noise, but to wait until the end of the event. So thank you. Got a lot to get through this afternoon. I hope you've all enjoyed your lunch, and I would like to formally welcome everybody to the NAViGO AGM. The AGM brings together our staff, our service users, carers and partner agencies. The purpose of this part of our AGM is to account for the achievements we have made over the last 12 months against the objectives we set ourselves at the start of last year. Many of these objectives came from the priorities set by our members. You'll also hear about our financial position and something about our future plans. Also, a big thank you to Jason Stockwood, Vice Chair of Grimsby Town Football Club, who will be discussing pride in our community with our Chief Executive, Simon. This afternoon is also a chance to celebrate the many achievements of our staff and volunteers, and the members have run 5 award categories this year, and the winners will be announced just before 3 o'clock. We have a 15-minute break in this section of the AGM at 2 o'clock, and that is your last chance to cast your vote for the project of the year. And we have 5 projects bidding for your support at this AGM, with the top 2 projects receiving funding to move forward. And the projects are the Carers Information Pod, based at Harrison House and using technology to help carers access the support and information they need. The Low Stimulus Therapy Room at Talking Therapies, designed specifically to offer therapy in a way that meets the needs of neurodiverse individuals. My Menopause Matters, creating a menopause support group run by trained volunteers and open to service users and staff. Under our umbrella, this project aims to create workplaces within NAViGO that are more neurodivergent friendly. And finally, but certainly not least, WellVend, a well-being vending machine based at Harrison House and providing 24 access to healthy snacks and drinks for service users, staff and visitors. Before I move on to introduce the board, could I just ask that the person who accidentally took the sustainable Bluetooth speaker from the sustainability stand, could they please return it, because it would be very welcome. At this point, I would like to introduce each member of the NAViGO board who is here today. And I will start with our non-executive directors, and they will stand up as I announce their name. Andrew Waterhouse. Joe Keane. Gertrude Wadei. Pam Callison. And our other non-executive, Kathy Kennedy, she couldn't actually be with us today. Moving on to our executive directors, many of whom are very well known to you. Our Chief Executive, Simon Beaton. Our Deputy Chief Executive, Mike Reeve. Our Directorate of Corporate Affairs, Anna Morgan. Dr. Amma Sajjad, our Medical Director. And last but not least, Janine Smith, our Chief Operating Officer. I would like to thank Gertrude, Joe and Pam for their support and for the significant contributions they have made to the working of the board over the last 2 to 3 years in their role as elected NEDs. They will be greatly missed, so thank you to all of you. Right, we'll now move on into the formal AGM with the receipt of the minutes from the AGM that was held on the 28th of September 2023. Could I please ask members to approve these minutes, which have been made available for everybody to read on the NAViGO website, and there has been a hard copy of the minutes available here today. Could you please raise your hands to approve the minutes, please? Thank you very much. Thank you. Consider those approved. We're now going to look back at 23-24. And in a minute, I'm going to hand over to Simon to present his review of the last year and to no doubt share his thoughts on what is next for NAViGO. But before he does join me, I would like to thank Simon on behalf of the whole board for his brilliant leadership of NAViGO over the last year. These are very, very challenging times for all providers of health and care services. And Simon has a very strong hand on NAViGO's tiller, not only navigating us through these choppy waters, but continuing to develop and expand our services. A big hand as we now welcome our Chief Executive, Simon, onto the stage.
Thank you, Jane. That was a welcome and a half. I'm a little bit prepared today. I'm not usually that well prepared, but I'm a little bit prepared. So, first of all, obviously, the reason I'm up on stage is to give you a sort of oversight and reflection on what's happened in the last year. Well, the year that we're accounting for the AGM, which is 23-24. But before I sort of dive into 23-24, I just wanted to give you some reflections really on the organisation and where we are. NAViGO was born in 2011, so we're now 13 years old. There you go. So we're a teenager. When I'm up on, I speak quite a lot nationally around NAViGO because we are a really, really unique organisation. We don't often reflect on that ourselves as an organisation, but when you compare us to the way that a traditional NHS organisation is worked, we are very different. Examples of that this morning, as we heard from people up on the stage this morning, and the way we wrap our arms around people and really support them. I always say NAViGO is my third child, because my daughter Harriet was born in 2008, my son Stanley was born in 2012, and NAViGO was born in 2011, so it's the middle child. So I don't know what it says about the personality of it, that it's a middle child, but there's more clinicians in the room will tell us that. But what I'm really proud of, I think when we spun out in 2011, being honest, we probably thought this is a bit of a fad. This social enterprise thing is probably a bit of a fad that the government's come up with. We'll have 5 good years before the NHS reorganises it, wraps us back up into an NHS trust, and we'll go, oh, wasn't that a great experiment? And here we are, 13 years later, still thriving, not just surviving, we're thriving as an organisation, and I want to tell you a little bit more about that as we go into it. You know, we started very early with an empty balance sheet, for want of a better phrase, and we've built a balance sheet. We own buildings locally. We own other properties. We've got lots of assets that Anna will come to, the strength of the way the organisation. We had to build it from the ground up as an organisation, and I'm really proud of the way that we've been able to do that. And we've done that all while staying true to the values that we were established as an organisation to deliver. You know, the things around, you know, we all know services would be happy for our own family to use. And I think at the heart of us, we are a family organisation. I'm hearing that that's an unpopular phrase now with the Gen Zs. If you say that your organisation is like a family, that means we expect you to work too much. I'm still wed to actually a family organisation and a family values that we have. We've always had, I'll come on to a little bit more about this later, outstanding staff and service user feedback. We are the envy of the UK in terms of how staff feel working in this organisation and how service users report back on the care that we give them. And that's something that we need to keep and continue to be really proud of. We do that all whilst delivering a financially balanced position or a surplus position. And you've been fortunate enough again this year, as we have done every year since we spun out, to be able to vote on how we spend that surplus in a project of the year. And we've had some brilliant projects of the year. They've been really varied, they've been really brilliant. Some have been more successful than others. The brain bus, for an example, was a great idea, never really moved anywhere. But that's the sort of things we can do as an organisation. We can experiment, we can try things a little bit differently because we are financially sustainable and we make a surplus and we can reinvest that in the way the organisation works. A lot of myself and my execs spend an awful lot of time in NHS conversations and in local authority conversations, and they're in deficit. They're running a huge deficit. They've got no idea how to get out of a financial deficit. And our ex-chair, Tom, always used to say, once you get into deficit, think, you start chasing the money. And we fortunately have never, well, not fortunately, we've been very well managed in terms of the way that we're able to do that. All the time, delivering new, innovative, creative partnerships. We recognise that NAViGO is not an island as an organisation, and we're always looking for partner organisations to either join us or become part of us. You know, we've got the Alzheimer's Society here today, we've got F4IT here today, we've got, see, Micron Focus is here. Lots of our partner organisations are around here, and we're always looking at developing things in partnership with people. So I wanted to go on some recent achievements, again, just before we drop into 23, 24 more specifically. So we've welcomed new members of the family. That's been tough, it's been challenging. It's been challenging for both of those organisations that will come up on the next few bullet points in terms of, we welcomed Nurtrio and we've welcomed Young Minds Matter. They were both huge, huge undertakings in terms of bringing Nurtrio together, bringing Young Minds Matter into the family. And it feels now like they're part of the fabric of the way that our organisation works. And that's been a journey, that's been a long, long journey to get Nurtrio established in the organisation and get Young Minds Matter over from Links Partnership safely and feeling like they're part of our organisation. We've enhanced the voice of our people, and we continue to do that. You know, we've got a new group of staff reps and a new group of community reps have just been appointed today. We're always looking at creative and new ways where we can hear the voice of people who use our services or people who work in our services, and I'm really proud of that. And that's come recently with the establishment of the BAME network. You've heard that Toby's going to lead the LGBT plus network, youth movement, etc. What you'll see on our socials and through our communications that we're always looking at ways where we can bring people sort of into the family, for want of a better phrase. And we've also established new partnerships as well along the way. We've got some really, these are recent achievements, but we've also got some really well-established partnerships that we've built, that have built the foundations of our organisation. So I'm thinking the likes of Northern Lincolnshire and Gould Hospital. We've always had a really positive relationship with them. Care Plus Group, Focus, the CCG, CTP, ICB, they've changed their name a number of times, as well as Primary Care, as well as North East Lincolnshire Council, Links Housing Partnership, etc. We've got to recognise as an organisation we work in a health and social care ecosystem. Really, really strong partnership work, and I've heard about this morning with We Are With You as well, similar to the way that we're working going forward. We've established new partnerships recently, so we've got now the Voluntary Community and Social Enterprise Alliance, which has got 60 plus members of the grassroots organisations that we work with coming together as an alliance and really helping us to drive forward the work on mental health. We've also got the Mental Health Sector Network, which brings together all of those partners I mentioned earlier, particularly around some of the statutory services, as well as bringing the VCSE in, to say how do we all work together better to make a fundamental difference to the way that people experience their mental health. And it was only on Claire's video this morning that she was saying how well she'd reflected on that we treated her medical symptoms alongside her mental health symptoms. I think working in partnership with organisations that we do will only strengthen us in that space. And Grimsby Town, it's obviously a popular one. Jason's coming, giving his time up gratefully for him this afternoon. That partnership again continues to go from strength to strength. Change Chief Executive, the partnership just continues to flourish. New services that we've opened in the last 2 or 3 years, without going into this year, across the last 2 or 3 years. So we've got Tees House, the celebration that we had at Tees House. That's been a long journey getting us from 6, 7, 8 years ago where there were no services locally for people with complex Alzheimer's and dementia, and we've opened Tees House. It's a phenomenal facility. If you haven't had the chance to go to Tees House, please do. It's an amazing, really, really NAViGO, a real NAViGO facility, and something, a flagship that we need to be proud of. Adult rehabilitation services. Again, we've done a lot of work in adult rehab, and we are now the talk of the country in terms of the services that we've developed in adult rehab. And that's not underplaying it. I have had people from the southwest, the southeast, the northwest, the Midlands, and our own patch going, how on earth have you been able to do what you've done in adult rehab? So for those of you that are involved in adult rehab pathways, that's right from those guys that are on Brocklesby Lodge, right through into the community, through Hope Court, through the houses that we've got in the community, through the work that we do with Links Housing Partnership, bringing homes back into use and allowing people that sort of rehabilitation pathway and stopping people going out of area. That's been a phenomenal achievement, and again, it continues to move forward. One Front Door, you've probably heard many things about One Front Door. That really is around, you know, that sort of ethos we talk about as an organisation. We don't diagnose people, medicate people and discharge them. We find them somewhere to live, somewhere to work and someone to love. And that One Front Door principle really does build on that, and it's a huge feather in our cap, the work that One Front Door have done, and I was reading about it and hearing about it this morning. And it continues to go from strength to strength, that sort of gathering up and scooping up of people that need some support from us at any particular time. Employment services connected with the One Front Door. Pleased to see that we've got Ross. Ross has been elected as one of our staff reps, who's been instrumental, along with Lisa and other people, in terms of bringing together those employment services, working with Joe Keane, bringing together our employment services into one place. Sounds quite simple and sounds quite straightforward. It hasn't. It's been really challenging. And again, if I reflect back on the way other organisations have had to do this, they've had to keep their employment, the parts of their employment services separate. So they have a separate IPS function, a separate employment advisors function, and they have nothing like Tukes. We've actually been able to bring that together in one whole service, and people are going, wow, this is mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing what you're able to do and how you just support people. So I just wanted to say something about that as well. International recruitment. I'm assuming we've got a room full of international recruits, and I must make a huge shout out to Mike here, who's led on international recruitment activity. Whilst it might seem like we're off to India on a jolly, we are not. We are the only organisation that we know of, certainly in Humber and North Yorkshire, and possibly across the country, that has zero medical agency spend. We have got enough medics for our organisation, and that's a huge credit to Amir in his leadership of our medical staff, and a huge credit to Mike in terms of opening that tap, working with India and bringing people over here, as well as the staff that we've brought in from Nigeria and Zimbabwe, etc. as well, who have settled in really well. And as Jane says this morning, 20% plus of our staff now, we're proud to say, from a diverse and BAME background, which is a huge strength to our organisation. CAMS Care UK, another recent adoption. You might have heard about that this morning, because Alistair and Kelly are here selling the virtues of CAMS Care UK, and that's a suicide risk assessment tool that we brought over from the UK, recognising that suicide risk assessment isn't particularly brilliant in the UK. The rates of suicide in the Western world have been roughly 10 people per 100,000 population for the last 40 years. It's the biggest killer of men under 50, yet it seems to be forgotten about. CAMS Care UK is our real opportunity as an organisation to make a difference to that, and I look forward to seeing how that continues to grow. And green and blue social prescribing. Again, it's about that. You know, hopefully you've seen Mr. Canoe. James is here somewhere. That's the best example really that we've got, and lots of other examples around how we're engaging people in activity. Again, I think it was it Becky this morning? I can't remember, but people were saying about the meaningful occupation of their time. We're able to give that offer to people as a meaningful occupation of their time. There's nothing worse for your mental health than isolation and loneliness, and being able to provide that support for somebody and get them something to do, it's been phenomenal. We've expanded our portfolio, and I'll scan through this because I'm talking too much as per usual. Perinatal, just stuff that we've done again over the last 3 years that's not even in 23-24. Perinatal services, we've developed the potting shed. The neuropsychiatry services that we launched a number of years ago was another project of the year that's sort of overwhelmed with demand because it's been so successful. And eating disorder services, the first episode, rapid early intervention into eating disorders, has also been a huge success, as well as things that aren't on there that have been going on again for a number of years. Our partnership work with Care Plus Group around ADHD and autism and neurodiversity. You can see that despite the situation that we find ourselves in the NHS with the shortage of resources, we've been able to be really creative as an organisation. So into 23-24, a little bit more of a deeper dive into 23-24, but just some stats to flash up for you there and pick out a couple of them, and another one that's really important to us. So we've got a couple of the percentages that are up there. They're percentages that we can be absolutely the envy of other organisations. So 96% of our service users felt that staff had listened to them and heard them. And I've heard that again multiple times over, only this morning, people saying that. 98% of our service users rate the service they received as good or very good. That's a huge volume. 99% of our service users feel staff treated them with dignity and respect. You can't say fairer than that. That's all set against the context of, top left there, you probably can't read it, but the highest provider organisation in the country on the NHS staff survey. Again, the NHS staff survey, you guys reflect back to us and say to us, this is a pretty good organisation to work in. It's not perfect. I'm not up here telling you this organisation is a perfect place to work, but those statistics are the envy of the NHS and the mental health world, and it's because of the hard work that you guys put in every single day. Another important stat that's not up there, 0 out of area placements. As an organisation, we do not send our people out of our area for treatment. If we do, or if we find a problem in there, we bring them back home as quickly as we possibly can, something we're really proud of. So in terms of the 4 pillars of our strategy as an organisation, they're around quality, innovation, people and partnerships. And again, so I've just done a little bit of a deep dive into those. So in terms of quality, we've got a quality account that stretches to 103 pages. So it is actually an interesting read if you've got time to read 103 pages, but I'll try and break it down a little bit for you. So, but that's just a sign of how much quality we've got to put into a quality account. We have to fill 103 pages of it. We're the best performing mental health organisation in the patch. Probably in the country, but I haven't had time to dig all the information out. So we've hit all of our key performance indicators. Well, sorry, we hit 8 out of 9 of our key performance indicators within the Humber and North Yorkshire. So we're the only organisation. We are literally an island of green in terms of a traffic light system for how you perform, surrounded by a sea of red. And that's not a criticism of our NHS colleagues. They're doing their best. They're trying as hard as they possibly can. But it feels sometimes like we're a little island of green, like I say, surrounded by that sea of red. We continue to lead the way on out-of-area placements, as I've mentioned. There's a huge, huge push nationally at the minute. It is a scandal in mental health that the amount of people who are having to be treated outside of their area. Touch wood, because it is close on a number of occasions, as some of our clinical colleagues will be nodding away in the audience. We haven't used inappropriate out-of-area placements. Sometimes if our staff need some support or they fall ill at times, we ask for them to be treated out of area deliberately, but we haven't had to send anybody out of area for as long as I can remember, which is something that we should be hugely proud of. The next 2 bullet points, the 2 bits that keep me awake. There's 3 nights of the year that I struggle to sleep. I'm a pretty good sleeper. The 3 nights of the year are last night, because I always have this recurring dream that I'm going to stand up here and there'll be about 3 people in the audience. So that's one thing that keeps me awake. The night before the CQC's mental health survey comes out, and the night before the results from that, and the night before the staff survey comes out. And I'm pleased to say, again, as I've already mentioned, because of those 90-odd % that I put, the CQC's mental health survey has us as one of, if not the best organisation in the country to receive care, and the staff survey has us as the best organisation in the country to work for. Recognising that those 2 are always a balance. Needs to be a good place to work, needs to be a good place to receive care. We could be running Butlins and the staff could think it's brilliant and the service users could be getting a crap service. That's no good for anybody. Service users could think it's brilliant and we could be flogging our staff to death. That's another thing. It's about managing that balance between, whether it's a good organisation to work for, whether it's a good organisation to receive care from. And I'm pleased to say it is. Our quality, again, is exemplified by, we have the QNWA Award for Working Age Adults, Quality Network for Working Age Adults, the QED Award for Eating Disorder, MS-NAP or MSNAP, the Memory Services, HTAS, which is our Older People's Crisis Resolution Home Treatment Team, the Community of Communities Award for Sequoia, Respect is British Institute of Learning Disabilities accredited, and research. So lots and lots of labels that tell us as an executive and a board that our organisation is doing good things. So on to innovation. Things that we do differently. Patient Safety Incident Response Framework. We were already doing it. This has been a huge, huge implementation from the national government in terms of how, as an organisation, do you investigate when you have incidents, either serious incidents or the like. Most of it, this newfangled, amazing Patient Safety Incident Response Framework, we were already doing as an organisation. So we were already ahead of the curve, and a huge credit to Nat and the team in terms of how we've implemented that in a unique and different way ahead of the curve. So growing well together, infant relationship service. If you've been accosted by Emma, as I do quite regularly, she's laughing at me there in the audience, isn't she? A new service that we've been able to deliver with some Better Start for Life funding that supports people with mainly young mothers, but also young fathers with mild to moderate mental health conditions and attachment with the child and things like that. It's a really, really creative service that we're really pushing for continued funding for that Growing Well Together service. Eating disorder pathways for our children, we're working really hard. Obviously, we know as a country there's been an epidemic of eating disorder almost for young people, trying to work really hard with our Young Minds Matter colleagues to make sure that we're getting our eating disorder pathways for children right, connecting it with the really brilliant work that we do at Rari and Fields and in our adult eating disorder service as well. We've replaced the care programme approach recently through the community mental health team's transformation. We've replaced that with care and support plans, and a huge, huge credit to our CMHTs in terms of that's been a really turbulent time. Hopefully things are starting to settle down now, but it is the biggest change in community mental health that we've seen since the introduction of the Community Care Act in 1992 probably, so that's been a huge challenge for them. As well as RISE Project of the Year, I'm hearing this morning that's going really well. Stuff's really progressing really well with that. The Resilience, Independence, Strength and Empower service that you guys all voted for last year, again, has been really successful. So we continue to innovate as an organisation. Other stuff we've done absolutely warmed my heart this morning to see a joint presentation board between We Are With You and NAViGO, the Well Together service in terms of what that's done, because and a huge, huge credit to Janine for leading on the work around working on our substance misuse pathways, because we knew we weren't doing a good job. We had a very, very difficult, challenging relationship with We Are With You, and they did with us equally. To see a joint board between We Are With You and NAViGO, born out of, or started from a conversation with a gentleman who came to me and said, very, very new into role, I'd only been in chief exec role for a couple of weeks, and said, you really let my son down. He took his own life. You really let me down, the way that the substance misuse pathway didn't work for him. And so we took that on, and now 3 years later, just about 3 years later, it feels like that's really, really moving on. So a huge, huge credit to the people who were involved in that. Older adult end-of-life care. So we've done a lot of work around end-of-life care for older adults. And again, a huge credit to Freedom and the team. We've got an outstanding end-of-life care, because the advent of bringing Tees House about, bringing in Barbara's Beacon, Jane Lewington Suite, Janine Smith Suite, etc., put us into almost like a new world of dealing with quite a lot of people who were end of life. Mental health organisations don't do that. Freedom took the baton, ran with it, and we've now got outstanding support for people that are at end of life. So we're really, really proud of that. Green Plan delivery. If people don't accidentally pick up speakers. But Green Plan delivery, huge credit to Joe and the team in terms of taking that on, making sure that the organisation is green. I'm going to plant my wristband tonight. I don't know about anybody else, but everything in this auditorium is eco-friendly, and we as an organisation want to be eco-friendly. But I just also wanted to reflect on that sometimes it's not the shiny and new. Sometimes it's about doing the basic things really, really well. And sometimes it's about holding on to what you know is right. I wanted to give a big shout out to our early intervention team as well, who got top services nationally for early intervention, which is a huge, huge achievement. And the often overlooked teams such as assertive outreach. Probably you might have heard there's been a section 48 CQC review into Nottinghamshire Health and Care recently because of the tragic events that happened in Nottingham city centre a couple of years ago with a couple of young students and a caretaker who unfortunately lost their lives. And what they're saying is, as a result of it, is organisations, mental health organisations, need to recommission assertive outreach services. We've always held on to our assertive outreach service because we knew it was the right thing to do. Against the tide of assertive outreach services being landed into community mental health teams and sometimes losing some of that focus on the really, really challenging individuals that we need to look after. I think it's a huge credit to us as an organisation that we've kept on nerve, knew that assertive outreach was the right thing to do, and continue to do it. Onto partnerships. In terms of partnerships that we've done this year, I've already mentioned about the youth movement. We're always looking at new partnerships. The partnership, I think, goes from strength to strength with James, Canoe River Cleaner, other than he's the only one who scored 50 on the golf. It's not really good. Where are you, James? You're not winning anything. in practice too much. Grimsby Town Football Club, obviously we continue to work with the football club to raise the profile of mental health. I think I was on this stage last year saying very similar things in terms of the people that are attending football games are not necessarily your typical people who will reach out for support. Darren mentioned that this morning in terms of a male-dominated environment and how difficult it is to talk about those sorts of challenges. And I think that was a really powerful message for us all. And we know it's the right thing to be doing, going into Grimsby Town and doing that. The career pathway work that we're now establishing with Franklin College and Grimsby Institute for further and higher education. So we're looking at apprenticeships, grow our own staff, and developing career pathways for people that are in the health and care process. The work we've done with the Carers Centre recently has really developed our support for carers. Really, really proud of that. And some of our staff got to meet the Princess Royal. Some of our staff and users got to meet the Princess Royal the other year, which was really good. Continued support for the Grimsby 10K, again a captive audience of many, many thousands of people who come from all over the country to the Grimsby 10K, and the opportunity to have our voice at an event as big as that and our name on the back of the t-shirts, etc., is huge. And the Tees House opening, I think, in terms of the way that we've brought other people in, brought the Grimsby Town Partnership in there, brought May and the whole family in as well, I think was a really positive thing for us. And then most importantly, our people, and I didn't really want to say more about our people, and just show some of the amazing people that we've got in and around our organisation who support us and have been a fundamental part of how NAViGO develops. So 23-24, busy year, 24-25, we're sort of, feels like we are nearly halfway through it, equally as busy, equally as challenging, but also equally as exciting and as much opportunity to take things forward as we've ever had. Where next? The NHS, are we going to get a 10-year plan? Who knows? Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer, Keir Starmer's standing up today at the Labour Party conference. I'm assuming the NHS as being the crown jewel, if you like, of public services in the UK will be mentioned. They're talking about a 10-year plan for the NHS to get it back on its feet, to get it back from, I think, was it Ara Darzi, who's just announced a report on the NHS, said the NHS is in a critical condition, but the vital signs are good. We're not in a critical conditions at all as an organisation. As I say, we're a little beacon of green surrounded by a sea of red, it feels sometimes. Don't get me wrong, we want more money, we need more money. Demand is going through the roof in some of our services, particularly around Young Minds Matter, ADHD, neurodiversity, etc. But as an organisation, it doesn't feel like the wheels are coming off, and that's a huge credit to us. The advent of the Humber and North Yorkshire Integrated Care Board. We are now part of an ecosystem that stretches up to York and Scarborough and down to Grimsby and Scunthorpe, and we've got to find our place in that system as an organisation. If the NHS starts to think about big is beautiful, which is merging organisations together, making things big is beautiful, we have to defend our position. And we are being very successful at that in terms of the powers that be at the ICB are going, why is everybody else not like NAViGO? Why is everybody else not like you? So we're in a very fortunate position there. But that is choppy waters, as Jane referred to as she presented me on stage. There are choppy waters in the NHS at the minute. When the Prime Minister's standing up, not 2 months into his tenure, saying the NHS needs to reform or die, you know things are pretty serious. So we need to navigate our way through that. The North East Lincolnshire Health and Care Partnership, working together with Care Plus Group and Focus and Primary Care and the hospital and St Andrews and St Hugh's, etc., and the council, that's the future for our organisation. In place, based in place, making a difference to the lives of people who live and work in North East Lincolnshire. Another couple of things to mention really in terms of where we think, and as a board, we've set a direction of travel as an organisation. Children's residential care. You've maybe heard, some of you maybe heard me talk about this. This is a bit of a bee that I've had in my bonnet for a while. We've done quite a lot of work bringing working age adults back from locked rehabilitation placements, and I mentioned earlier about the really comprehensive rehabilitation pathway we've got. Our response to sending older people out of area for complex Alzheimer's, dementia, etc., we've solved that with Barbara's Beacon, Janine Smith Suite, Jane Lewington Suite, and what's going on at Tees House. So the next step, children. What's going on in children's services at the moment. You've probably heard, if you haven't heard on the national news, local authorities are hemorrhaging cash at the moment, sending vulnerable children long, long way from home because we've got a market that's dominated by the private sector who are basically printing their own money and making vast, vast profits off the back of vulnerable children, something which I'm absolutely outraged by. So as an organisation, in partnership with Nurtrio, we've got the opportunity to bring some of our children from very difficult, complex, out-of-area placements back home, back close to their family, back close to their networks, back close to their friends. We will be embarking on that, and we'll be doing it pretty quickly in partnership with Anne-Marie Matson, who's the Director of Children's locally, who really wants us to do this. It will save the local authority a fortune. Some of these children are being sent out of area costing 30, 40, 50,000 pounds a week being spent, and some of them are on canal boats and in static caravans, and it's an absolute scandal that's ready to explode in the UK, so you will be hearing it. We want to do something about it locally. We want to bring our children back and look after them and wrap them in our organisation and support them in their mental health journey. So we will be doing that as an organisation. We'll be leaning into that in a big way over the next couple of years. More commercial activities, question mark. You know, we're always looking for new opportunities. You know that we own the garden centre. We've also got Cams Care UK. We've got Respect Training. We've got other things where we look to sell externally to other people and create employment opportunities for people who live and receive our services. So we'll be looking at more opportunities for that. We're not just going to go at any opportunity. It's got to be the right opportunity. But the board have given us the green light to go out and find some more stuff. There's other priorities we've got as an organisation as well. We recognise there's a big challenge in ADHD autism at the minute in terms of all-age neurodiversity. We recognise there's big challenges in complex emotional needs as well in terms of how do we deal with people, those emotionally unstable personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. We're looking at a huge pathway review of that. So there's lots and lots of stuff going on in the organisation, but we're safe, we're secure, we're in a reasonable financial position as an organisation. It will get more challenging as we go forward, but NAViGO is in a really good and healthy position. So I just wanted to say thank you for all you do as an organisation and to make us who and what we are as an organisation. And I just wanted to finish by just saying really from my point of view how proud I am to lead this organisation. It's in me, it's built in me as the way I am and the person that I am. I say it's my third child, it really does feel like my third child. This feels like my family. This is professional Christmas Day for me. This is the day that the organisation gets together, we all get together as a family and we celebrate what we do. If it wasn't clear in that children's residential care part of the presentation, injustice drives me. I feel that any sense of injustice, any sense of people being vulnerable and being mistreated and being undervalued really does drive me as an individual to make a difference. And I'm proud that in this organisation we have the ability to do something about it. We're not wrapped in red tape. We're not reporting through 27 layers of the NHS bureaucracy that says, no, you can't do this because. We're an organisation that can respond, can do things, and can make a difference to people's lives. And that's why I'm here. That's what drives me. That's why 15 years of being in NAViGO, I would say you'll carry me out of NAViGO in a box. You know, it's written, you know, oranges through me like a stick of rock. So I'm looking forward to leading this organisation for the next 3, 5, 20 years, however long you'll have me. You've got to vote me back in next year, so I'll be kissing babies at next year's AGM. But yeah, no, I really want to say I love working for this organisation and I think we've got a bright future together, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon. Inspirational as always. And I have to say that the values that Simon talked about in terms of tackling injustice and wanting to make sure that those who are going through the most vulnerable times of their life receive the very best support, those are the values that drive everybody who actually sits on the NAViGO board. But thank you very much, Simon. Thank you. Right, we now have to do a bit of business as members. It is at the annual general meeting where we get to decide on special resolutions. And a special resolution is a formal decision that members of NAViGO, whether they be staff members or community members, make on an important issue. And the special resolution contained within the notice for this AGM proposes that we amend NAViGO's Articles of Association to increase the total number of directors on the NAViGO board from 11 to 12. And the reason that we want to do this is to allow us to increase the number of non-executive directors on the board, people like myself, like Andrew, like Kathy Kennedy, the independent non-executive directors. So the number of non-executive directors would increase from 6 to 7. It would include the 3 membership representatives who you elect, who become non-executive directors. but it would also now include 4 independent non-executive directors rather than 3. The special resolution has been put forward because of basically the expansion of NAViGO and the expansion of the NAViGO services. The amount of board subcommittees that each of the non-executive directors are required to support, we now have 7. And also the involvement of our non-executive directors in both of the charities, the Gardner Hill Foundation and Nurtrio, as well as all of the site visits and the other work that the non-executives do. So every member should have been given an orange card to use in this vote when they arrive today. And hopefully you've had opportunity to read the special resolution before. And can I now ask that if, as a member, you support the special resolution, you raise the orange card. If I could ask you to do that now. We've got Lindsay, our board secretary, looking at the room. Am I okay to move on, Lindsay? Yeah. Can I now ask if you oppose the proposal to raise your orange card? And also, can I ask if there's anybody who wishes to abstain by raising their orange card? Okay, thank you very much. I think that resolution, that special resolution, has been passed. Thank you very much for that. Thank you. We're now going to look at our finances, and I would like to invite Anna Morgan, our Director of Corporate Services, onto the stage. And Anna will be taking us through the financial accounts for the year ending 23-24, so that as members we can then formally receive the financial accounts. Anna.
Thank you, Jane. Afternoon, everyone. It really is great to see so many of you here today. Another fantastic AGM. I'm Anna. I'm NAViGO's Director of Corporate Services, and I'm here to present what I know you've all been waiting for. It's the finances. So, what we're going to cover off in this part of the agenda is to review the performance of the NAViGO Group between the financial year April 23 and March 24. But we're also going to have a look at how we're performing in this current financial year and a look beyond. So before I get into the actual numbers, I just want to do a quick recap in terms of what I'm presenting today. So what I'm presenting is what's called the consolidated accounts. So that includes the performance of all of the organisations that fall within what I call the NAViGO Group. So what we've got within that group are NAViGO Health and Social Care, who continues to be the parent company. We've then got Nurtrio, who joined us back in March 22, who provide a range of social care and support services. We've got the Gardner Hill Foundation, who are our chosen charity, who are committed to enriching the lives of local people with mental health conditions. And then we've got NAViGO CAMS Care UK, the limited company established to deliver our collaborative assessment and management of suicidality training in the UK. And in addition, within the figures that I present today, I'm also going to include the performance of our other 2 trading arms, Respect Training and Grimsby Garden Centre. So for those of you that heard my presentation at last year's AGM, I referred to 22-23 as being a challenging year. And I think it's fair to say 23-24 has been another challenging year. We've had a few things that we've needed to contend with. What we refer to as the COVID injury, so still the ongoing effects and impacts of the pandemic. And that has included returning all of our services and our corporate functions to what we now call the new norm. And that is in addition to dealing with changing and in places increasing demand on our services and our teams. And that's whilst we continue to deal with COVID still being present in the community. We've also had to deal with the cost of living. So this is something we're all experiencing in our own personal lives, that increasing cost in terms of electricity, gas, interest rates going up, which are affecting mortgages and loans. It's the same for the organisations within our group. They're seeing increasing costs of running our services, but within the same budgets. So we've really got to look at how we manage that. And it's been a challenging financial environment within health and social care, as Simon mentioned, as you've all probably seen in the news. It is incredibly challenging within health and social care, and that is starting to have an impact on our organisation. And each year, the government asks that any organisation that holds an NHS contract that they deliver what's called an efficiency saving. So that efficiency saving is a percentage of your main contract value. So the challenge that poses for us is we've committed to grow our way out of the challenges that we're experiencing. But that means as our contract grows, that efficiency saving also grows. So it means we really have got to be smarter with our money. So before I get into the year-end position, I want to have a look at what we've done to generate income to make sure we balance those books at the end of the year. So, just before I go back, NAViGO's continue to hold our main contract for the provision of statutory all-age mental health services in North East Lincolnshire, and we were really pleased to welcome into the family the Young Minds Matter team delivering our child and adolescent mental health services in April 23. So that has meant that our contract has grown. We've also got the services that are provided by Nurtrio, and in addition, we've continued to offer beds within our older people's mental health inpatient services and our adult eating disorder services. And we make those beds available to partners within our system to support them in managing their complex service users, but it also means we're generating income that comes back into our services. And we've continued to endeavour to generate income through our trading arms, so through Grimsby Garden Centre, Respect and CAMS. And the positive about this is we can not only reinvest that income into further enhancing and developing those trading arms, but we can also invest that money back into our services, into mental health services. But also those trading arms create a platform for us to profile what we do within our group, our services, our ethos and our values. And also, particularly with the Garden Centre, it creates opportunities to offer training, meaningful occupation of time, work experience and job opportunities for our service users. And in addition to income, we've also looked at cost savings, and this is something that's completely normal for an organisation of our size to each year look at where are there areas where we can deliver savings. Now, those of you that heard the presentation last year will know that it was a fairly decent sized savings plan. This year, it's a lot bigger. So what we've had to deliver is over £700,000 in our operational services through efficiencies, and we've delivered over £400,000 in our corporate functions through efficiencies. So over £1 million in savings, so significantly more than the last time I presented this. But we've also done additional things like making sure we maximise our investment potential. So where we have got some money in the bank, maximising the interest we're getting on that money. And I also wanted to cover off what we've spent our capital funding on. So capital is a pot of money, and it's a one-off pot of money, so once it's spent, it's gone. But this is for the big ticket one-off items that we want to invest in to support enhancing and growing our services. So what's been on our capital wish list this year? We've spent over £100,000 on our IT equipment. We've spent over £2 million enhancing our estates. And a significant proportion of that was on the refurbishment and the establishment of our fantastic new older people's facility, Tees House, that Simon referred to. But the positive was we did get some funding from NHS England to help with those costs. We've also purchased a new vehicle, and a new one on the capital list is right-to-use assets. So we've added £135,000 on for this year, and this relates to our Wheelsby View lease. And why we're doing this is to make sure we adhere to the financial reporting standards. So we rent some space at Wheelsby View, so office space and clinical space for our community mental health teams. By adding this figure to our balance sheet, what it means is we're reflecting a true picture of what NAViGO owes for the use of that space over the period of the lease. So now we get into the formal part where you receive the accounts for 23-24. So just a very high-level snapshot of what it's looked like. So our income grew to over £62 million, but we also saw costs of just over £61 million. So that resulted in a profit after tax of £1.2 million. However, we do need to dig into that figure a bit more. It's a great figure, but just to understand how that's happened. So for those of you that saw the presentation last year when I presented the 22-23 accounts, you'll remember that I mentioned the non-consolidated COVID bonus payment that the government had agreed for staff on Agenda for Change contracts. So the challenge was central funding that was made available to NHS organisations to cover the cost of that payment didn't flow to social enterprises, but NAViGO's board committed to honour that payment for all of our staff. But what this meant was we encountered a £1.5 million pressure in our 22-23 accounts. Now, throughout 23-24, we have lobbied and challenged against that position, and we've worked with an organisation called Social Enterprise UK, who have tirelessly worked on behalf of all the social enterprises that were affected by this decision. And I'm really pleased to say that in March of this year, we got confirmation that we were going to get the funding to cover the cost of that pay award, which was brilliant. So that money came back into the organisation in 23-24. So if we were to take the pay award money out of the equation, what I'd actually be reporting today would be a small surplus of £100,000 at the end of the year, which is good. It's a surplus, that's what we want to achieve. But what we do need to consider is, if we were to add together the loss I reported last year and the surplus that we're reporting this year, over those 2 years, it would still be a £159,000 loss. So that does reflect the challenging financial situation we're in at the moment. So just a bit more detail in terms of what's in the accounts. We'll have a quick look at what do we own. So at the end of 23-24, we had current assets of 19.6 million. What we mean by current assets, they're liquid assets, so money we have available to spend or we can make available within the next 12 months. And then we've got non-current assets of over £6 million. So they're things where we've got our money tied up in it, so things like the properties that we've invested in. So that gives a position of over £26.5 million in assets. But sadly, we do owe some money as well. So what do we owe? So we've got over £16 million in current liabilities. So they're things we know we need to pay in the next 12 months. So things like our payroll, our credit cards, our suppliers. And then we've got non-current liabilities of over £3 million. So they're things we know we need to pay back, but over a much longer period of time. So the mortgages we've got on the properties. So that comes to £19.5 million. So in terms of reserves, if we look at what we own and what we owe, it leaves a reserves of £6.9 million. Now that's a really positive position, but what we need to remember is that isn't cash in the bank that we've got available to spend. That is made up of our assets that I've just talked through. So that includes the cash reserve that the board has asked us to retain, which I'll explain in a minute, and all of those assets, the properties that we've invested in, that have got mortgages against them. So it's a really strong position, but we need to be mindful of what makes up that figure. So to summarise the year end for 23-24, our balance sheet remains really strong, as I've just described, and we've got a really good asset base. So the money that we've invested in properties to grow and enhance our services. And we've got a really strong cash position, and that's really important because that's the way you assess the health of an organisation. And what our board have asked is, given the size of the organisation now, we hold a minimum cash reserve of £2 million, and that ensures we're deemed to be what's called a going concern. So we're deemed to be financially stable and will be continuing for the foreseeable future, and we have achieved that in this position, which is really positive. And for another year running, we've had a clean bill of health from our auditors. So my thanks to Kev Brumby and the finance team for making sure we've got another clean bill of health. So what's next for us? So although this is a positive report that I'm presenting, the past 2 years have been really challenging, and inevitably it's going to continue to be challenging, as Simon's alluded to. So what are we doing to manage that? We've already got a 24-25 saving plan, so much like we did last year, we've identified another savings plan of over £1 million, which we're currently working on, and touch wood, we're on track to deliver at the moment to ensure we balance at the end of the year. But we're also now looking to do some work to develop a 3-year savings plan. So in partnership with our budget holders, we're looking to forecast what does our financial position look like over the next 3 years, and therefore what do our cost saving plans and our income plans need to look like to make sure each year, as a minimum, we break even, or even better, we achieve a surplus, because that will mean we can top up that one-off capital pot to make more of those big ticket investments to support our service growth. We're also going to continue to lobby for equal investments in social enterprises, so making sure we're getting the same investment as NHS organisations into things like digital and sustainability. And we're going to grow our way out by innovating and transforming. So this is something that we do well. We think outside the box and we do things differently. So we can look at opportunities as to how can we enhance our income. So doing things like Simon mentioned in his presentation around new service developments. We can build on our strengths and our successes to offer solutions to other system partners. So the work we've done around out-of-area placements and our rehabilitation model, how can we grow that to support other partners whilst also generating income? We can look at growing and expanding our trading arms. We're absolutely committed to growing our way out of this challenge and looking at how those trading arms can contribute to the income that comes back into our services. We need to look at our investment in our digital transformation to deliver efficiencies through our digital strategy. And we need to look at investments that deliver a true return, so really using our money smartly. But without a doubt, the next few years are going to be challenging and they're going to be hard. But we don't shy away from a challenge, do we? Our staff and our members continue to be our biggest asset. You shape this organisation with your ideas on service development, service growth and transformation. And I am confident that if we continue to work together through this, we'll meet the challenge head on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, for a very clear exposition of the financial situation, and I'm sure most NHS organisations will be very envious of the financial position that NAViGO finds itself in. Right, so we now are going to have a 15-minute break. This is your very last chance to vote for Project of the Year. The voting tubes are actually going to be brought up here into the auditorium, so if you do still need to vote, you'll need to come into this area to place your vote. And also, can I encourage you to go to the Gardner Hill stand and sign up to donate those few odd pence from your salary each month. So we're back here in 15 minutes. Thank you. It's 2:25. We're about to start with the next section of the AGM. Conversation between Simon and Jason Stockwood from Grimsby Town. If we can come back into the auditorium, please. Do you want to do a... Thank you, Clive. Thank you. Right, we'll make a start. So, thank you all for coming back in. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Simon, who will be leading a conversation about pride in our local community with this afternoon's special guest, Jason Stockwood, Vice Chair of Grimsby Town Football Club. If you can give them the usual welcome. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. Can you hear us okay? Oh, a bit of feedback. I'll be turning the volume down. So, hi, Jason. I just wanted to welcome you. A huge welcome to the NAViGO AGM for 2024.
Thank you.
We're really grateful for you giving up your time to come and spend some time with us. And I know I speak on behalf of staff and service users when I say that what value we have in the relationship that we've got in the football club at the moment. So, before we inevitably get round to talking about which striker you're going to sign for 20 goals a season, which I'm sure you're bored of hearing. The theme of today is around North East Lincolnshire and people from North East Lincolnshire, and obviously knowing that you're a sort of Grimberrian born and bred and have moved on in different places, but I just wanted you to tell the audience a bit about your time in Grimsby, really.
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. I don't take that for granted that anyone after lunch would want to listen to me talk about anything. So I appreciate you sitting down. Feel free to have a snooze or something if you want to. In this. So I was born in Nunsthorpe Maternity Home, which most people know. The first 7 years of my life was in Scatha, Antrim Way, for those of you who may know it. So council estate kid, not unusual in Grimsby. I'm one of 4 boys, 4 different dads. My mum liked the taste of wedding cake. So she described it like the 60s was San Francisco in Cleethorpes. I don't know, like, I wasn't there, but she seemed like she had a nice time. But I had a loving childhood. I had a really loving childhood, and it was only sort of growing up I realised that, you know, when I got away from the town, we grew up skint, but everyone was skint and everyone got on, and, you know, I didn't really have a bad time. It got a bit rocky. My mum married a 3rd husband. You can say that in Grimsby and no one even bats an eye, right? But like, if I say this anywhere else in the country, people are like, yeah, her 3rd. And we moved out to Holtney Clay. But it wasn't a great marriage. He was an ex-fisherman, he was an alcoholic and was quite violent. And so she moved away from him, but we stayed in Holtney Clay when I was 11. So I went to Tolbar. And then it's really quite poignant being here today, actually. So I've never been to the auditorium. I live away now. I've lived away since I was 18. But I spent a lot of time in the leisure centre growing up, because my nana used to live on Scott Close, which is just like literally 2 minutes away from here. So, yeah, and moved away at 18. Didn't do particularly well at school. I was bright, but I had no one telling me right from wrong. So, yeah, I couldn't wait to get away, to be honest with you, just because I didn't feel like I fit in. I grew up around here at a time when, I can't really see actually who's out there, but like a generation of men that hardness and toughness was the quality that people admired, and I used to play at that, and I didn't really like it. But we were brought up by a generation of people who were hard, right? Because it was the fishing industry and other industries. So I was brought up in an environment where being tough and drinking and stuff was admired, and I played that game. But I also liked poetry, and I liked the arts, and I liked writing, and I had no expression for that. In fact, I'll tell you a story. So I told my mum I write a column in The Guardian now every month. And I've told my mum that I like poetry, and her response to that was, "Are you gay?" And I was like, it was such a ridiculous thing to say, looking back on it. But my mum, you know, that was the mindset at the time, that anything that was different wasn't comprehensible. And so getting away from the town, I was able to express myself and to start to find the things I love to do, which I've ended up, you know, being an entrepreneur, I've ended up being a writer, I've ended up, you know, trying to express myself fully. But I love the town. And, you know, 90% of the things that have given me any sort of success were because of the upbringing and the qualities that I had from being in the town as well, which is why I'm drawn back to it and still heavily involved. What was the question? That's a Grimsby thing, that as well. Doesn't matter what you ask me, I'll just talk anyway. So
Yeah, too right. That's what you're here for. So leaving Grimsby at 18, what did the world look like to you as a young adult then, 18 to sort of 20, when you left your roots, if you like, in Grimsby?
Well, I describe it to people. I think Grimsby's got, and it is unique. And for those of you who've stayed here all your lives and that, if you get away and talk to people, you realise what an amazing place it is and how unique it is. Like, we have an amazing amount of confidence in this town. But you go to other places and it just doesn't exist in people. Like, we're always really proud of where we're from. And so that sort of spurred me on. And it's weird even talking about it. So bearing in mind I failed my A-levels, right? I applied to a load of scholarships to go to school in America because I fancied it. And I saw other people doing it. And I must have written, I don't know what the number is, but I must have handwritten at least 100 letters to scholarship places. And I got a scholarship to go to a high school in America, which was weird, right? Because I flunked. But I think when I look back on it, it was an organisation trying to take kids from economically disadvantaged places and put them into posh boarding schools in America. So it was a weird experience. But I had a school year in Virginia, and I just kept moving then. I came home for a bit. I went to Israel on a kibbutz for 5 months because it was the only place you could go where you didn't need any money. So I got a credit card, got a flight to Israel, and stayed there for 5 months. And then I came back and I worked on the docks, and I realised I wasn't cut out for proper hard work. I did 6 months like labouring. I was like, fuck this, I'm not cut out for this. And so I ended up working at Disney World in Florida. So I just applied again. I'd try anything. But there's a bit in the middle there, actually. I was saying to the lady, I can't see like her lads in the RAF we were just talking to. And I applied to go in the military because I didn't know what other options I had. I went to go in the Marines, and I went through the selection process, and they said to me, we think you can come in, but you're not committed if you don't really want to do this. And I was like, yeah, I do. And they gave me a year off and said, we'll call you in a year. And a year today, they called me, and I was working at Disney World in Florida. I was like, Marines or Disney World in Florida. I was like, you were right, by the way, well done. Whatever your models tell you, keep going with that. And then the real turning point in my life was while I was away in Florida and had an amazing time. I worked at the Epcot Centre. I started to read, and I've never really read. To be honest, I did enough to get in school not to be into trouble and so I could play football. And I started to read, and I found stuff I liked reading and enjoyed reading. And I got this habit, which is, if I read, and I still do it today, I write with a pen, or I now write on a Kindle and take notes. But I take notes as I'm reading everything I read. And every time I read something that's interesting that talks about something else, I'll write a note of it, and I'll go and read that thing. And I found that the things that I liked reading were philosophy. So I decided that, again, I've got no idea where this came from. I was like, I'll go to university. Bearing in mind I had one A-level. So I looked where you could go to university with one A-level, and it was one place. It was Bolton Institute. And, I went to university. And so I came back from Disney, went to university, really loved it. I was decent at it. I had a place to do a PhD after that because I was pretty talented at it as well. And then I went to be a holiday rep in Greece for 6 months. And when I came back, I got a job at a travel company called Trailfinds in London. I went to London because I wanted to go clubbing, basically, and I stayed for 5 years. And then there was this thing called the internet that you might remember was coming about in the late 90s, and I just got really immersed in that. And I got really lucky, which is any entrepreneur that tells you that they own their success is lying. Basically, hard work is a necessary condition of success, but it's not sufficient. So I got really lucky. I met the founders of a business that was lastminute.com, and I was employee 30 there, and that became like $1 billion company. And then my career took off at 30, really. And today, I've squared the circle. I wrote a book in 2018 about technology, which I know about. I'm an investor now. I went to Oxford University as a fellow 3 years ago. So a kid that left school with no qualification, I'm a fellow at Oxford now. I made my money in my 30s, and And so now I want to spend my time doing something that's more useful on a societal level. So again, I've got no idea what the question was there.
No.
Just, I hope this is all right.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. There seems to be like the 100-odd letters over to America sort of strikes me as somebody who's got that sort of persistence and that doggedness to succeed. You wanted to go to America. You weren't going to take no for an answer 99 times. Yeah. So you wrote the 100th letter, and the 100th letter was successful, and that's obviously something that stayed with you in terms of that determination. Where do you think your sort of entrepreneurial spirit sort of came from? Did you always think of yourself as like, I want to do something a bit different or a bit creative or a bit, or did it come to you, or did you go to it?
No,
I suppose.
again, I'm always really suspicious of people especially successful people who describe this sort of linear path from their childhood to their success, because life's just not like that. But there were a couple of clues in there. Like I don't know, and I think I've read a lot about this. It's like it's somewhat luck as well in the natural disposition you're born with. There's a bit of a Grimsby thing about resilience, I think, which is a characteristic of the town. But I'm just not scared of failure. I never have been. And I think it's because when I look back on it, life was pretty shit growing up. Now, it was all right when I was in it, but when I look back on it, we had, multiple uncles in and out of our house. We had domestic violence, we had alcoholism, we had poverty. But actually, when you've started from that baseline, I say, life is not about where you end up, it's the distance you travel. And so I think I had people working in my last business. My last business had 1,000 people. And I was like, I think it's harder to go from that upbringing to having a life that's just where you look after yourself and you have a good job. And, rather than if you go to Eton, you end up Prime Minister, that's not a bigger distance to travel, actually. So I think it's about the distance you travel in your life. And I've been blessed with, and it's a blessing because I've no idea where it comes from. It's like, I'm just not bothered about fate. I don't care. I don't really care what people think of me. I don't have that. So my wife thinks I'm a bit weird like that. But like, I want to be liked like everyone. But like, if you don't like me, I don't think about it. Like I'll move on and I'll go to the next thing. And so I'm blessed with that. I'm not like I failed at loads of stuff, and genuinely I look at it as an opportunity. I'm more interested in when things get hard and what you learn from those moments than success. Because things are dead easy. When things are going well, life's easy, but you really learn about yourself and about the people around you and when things are tough. And I think I had a lot of that in my life growing up, but I didn't really realise it. Whereas, like, when things get hard, we could, like now I talk about, like, I don't have to worry about my bills being paid. Like, as a kid, from very early age, my mum used to tell us about the electricity get cut off, or, we weren't going to eat until the next day, or we had a TV. I tell my mates in London about this. Like, our telly at home used to put 50p in the back of it, or it wouldn't work. So we didn't even rent a telly. We had to pay for it. So we didn't always have a telly as well. And it sounds like Dickensian, I mean, I talk to people that I worked with, but it was just normal. So I think if you've got that baseline, every day is a bonus, right? And you go through one gate of success, and I just go, oh, that's okay. What's next? And I'm constantly thinking about what I do next. Because I'm not in a dissatisfied way, but it just doesn't impress me, when people have success, it doesn't impress me. It's like, okay, what do you use that for next, and how far can you go, basically?
Fascinating, yeah. Because you talk about, I think that toughness and toughness is wrong, isn't it? But that resilience, if you like, to continue going, and you reflecting on hard times. And hard times being where you feel you've learned the most. I want to connect that back to you then going, I'll tell you what I'll do now. Can't think of anything harder, or probably unwiser to do, than go back home and buy a football club.
Yeah, that was a terrible
decision. And spend my kids' inheritance.
That was a terrible decision.
And pour it all into a football club.
No.
So what brought you to that, like, right, okay, I've been successful enough now that I'm going to just throw my money at this?
So again, like words are really important, and I think a lot about this is like resilience has I think has a negative connotation to it, because it talks about, it's the idea of toughness and being able to endure hardness. I think more about fortitude and well-being. Like, if you think about your well-being at all times, then when things get hard, you've got stuff to draw on. I wrote a bit about this in my book. It's like one of the ultimate characteristics of a CEO is building trust in an organisation, so that when you need it, you can draw on it. And it's the same with well-being and fortitude. You need to take care of yourself, so that when things get hard, because they get hard for all of us, you've got resources and people to draw on. So the resilience stuff is quite interesting, I think, because I think that does speak to a type of toughness, and toughness is definitely overrated. Vulnerability and the ability to be in touch with your emotions is absolutely critical. for all your relationships, quite frankly. So I just mentioned that.
Yeah.
But the football club, I mean, it's a really long story, so I'll try and keep it short. So in 2016, I was about to sell my last business, my third business, and I was, when Brexit happened, I just didn't understand it. So I was actually talking to some investors in New York, and they were asking me about Brexit. It was actually the day before the vote, and I was like, it's not going to happen. And I was so in a bubble of where I was living in North London and out of touch with my friends and family here and the rest of the UK. So when it happened, not only did I not understand it, but I was a bit saddened by it as well, that what we're doing, what I think we've done to our country. So I decided, like, this is what I do. I was like, I'm going to go and understand that. And so I went back to university. This is when I got the fellowship to Oxford. They offered me, and I was like, I'm going to spend a year and a half really understanding our politics and where the fractures are in our economy and capitalism and our communities. And I wrote a thesis about, you know, God, this is becoming quite boring for people, so just, again, walk out and nod off if it is. But, like, basically, the version of capitalism that we've got came out of the 1960s through the Chicago School of Economics. And it was basically, and Margaret Thatcher was the great proponent of this, which is if you have a version of capitalism that creates a lot of wealth, it will equally be distributed through the whole of society. And we called trickle-down economics. And it's a lie. It was a lie then and it's a lie today. But lots of business people and politicians still believe it. And when you look at how our politics has gone in the last 20 years, from 2008 when the banking crisis happened, we created austerity, which all our public services, all the things that bound us as communities, all our civic institutions have been eroded over a period of basically 17 years. And there's a philosopher called Robert Putnam that talks about this, that talks about you need a common life and these civic institutions that bind us, not just to make our economy and our communities work, because it's what we exist in. We exist because of relationships and how we're connected to each other. So while I was reading and writing about all this stuff, I was like, I can either spend the next 20 or 30 years making more money and doing some stuff for charities and that, or I can get stuck in and go and build something. And while that was happening, I was like, well, you know, Grimsby was one of the highest Brexit places in the UK, voting places in the UK, so I understand why that happened now, and I actually respect why people voted for that. I'd probably vote for Brexit today, which is an intrusive term that I went on, because of the sort of disenfranchisement, the way that politics was centralised through, you know, Whitehall, and because of the way the economy was failing us. But then I was like, well, how do we build the institutions back in Grimsby that can be used as a role model, you know, hopefully globally as well? And so my idea was, if we can take an institution from the past, the football club, and modernise that and make it more welcoming, more inclusive, and actually a bit more ambitious for itself, if we can build an institution for the future, which is the onside youth zone that I've chaired and we're building, will be open next year. Hopefully you're aware of that, right near the Feshionary Place. That'll open next year, which will be an institution for all our kids in the town to have proper youth work, proper provision at scale. And there's some great work in the town already, but not at the scale that onside can do. And the third component is an institution that binds all this together. So I founded a charity called Our Future, which is how do we think about systemizing this work so that it can be replicated in other towns up and down the UK. And so I gave myself 3 years to do that, bought the football club with Andrew, started to raise the money for onside and started this charity. I had no idea whether any of this would work. And so I said I'd do it for 3 years, and that 3 years ended in May. And, you know, it's sort of working. There's a long way to go. And so, so it's part opportunistic because the football club, I've been approached about buying it about 10 years ago, and I was like, absolutely not, I don't want to own a football club. It's a terrible idea as an investor. But as a cornerstone of our identity as a town, and hopefully a symbol of aspiration and hope, inclusivity, I say this bit of love and connection for our town. I think the football club can be that. And let's be honest, it's an opportunity for people to vent their anger and emotions sometimes as well in a controlled environment, which we also need a bit of. So, you know, we're on that journey. We've started with 3 years in, but, you know, hopefully people start to feel it's a slightly different orientation for what it means for the identity of the town is the hope anyway.
Yeah, and I agree. Thinking about the time that I've spent in the football club from a NAViGO point of view, it for me brings a completely different dimension to that community conversation, because we like to think of ourselves as an organisation that's rooted in our community. As I was mentioning to you when we were talking earlier, it's very unusual to have an organisation of our size that's geographically sort of co-located with the local authority. Most of the mental health trusts are huge organisations that don't have I feel, don't have a huge connection in their community. And I feel that we do. But we still find it, I still feel the power of the badge in terms of the football club has a deeper reach into the community. And I think you recognise, from me speaking to you the many times we've spoken, I think you recognise that, sort of the power of the badge to bring people together on more than just a Saturday afternoon for 90 minutes.
I mean, if anyone interested, I've written about 40 columns in The Guardian about this now, and I think, genuinely, I've looked around different industries and companies and charities. I think football has this latent sort of potency to resonate in our identity that other things don't anymore. If you think about our life's been fractured over my lifetime, whether it was our political affiliations don't make sense in the way they used to. To be a Labour supporter growing up is a very different from being a Labour supporter today. But, organised religion has dissipated for most of us. The unions are less, so if you go across a lot of the different sort of variables of our identity have been diluted or gone away entirely. And yet if you look at football clubs, it's the one place you can come together, irrespective of where you exist and what vector of identity across gender, sex, ethnicity, whatever, we can come together and usually be miserable for 90 minutes, but we can come together in a space that we have this shared identity. And I can't think of many other institutions that are certainly 46 years old that remain that potent. Now, they need modernising because they haven't been as inclusive and they haven't been as welcoming to some people, but we're getting better at that. So one of the wonderful things about Debbie, our CEO, who left to go to she's now running all the EFL's community work. And we talk a lot about, I think there's a role for football clubs to play as those anchor institutions in their communities to open up the dialogue about whether it's mental health or, participation in sport or whatever, quite frankly. There's something about the football club and the badge that is a space for those conversations. So I think we just need to do more to utilise them, quite frankly, which is why it was great when we met a couple of years ago. I was like, yeah, whatever you need it for, because look, the need's greater in society now, but certainly around mental health provision in our side, the need and the stress and the anxiety and the uncertainty about how the world is complex and it's getting ever more complex. We need this ever more. So football clubs can do a lot more, I think, but we're on that journey and we're certainly really grateful for the partnership.
Yeah, us too. So just a bit onto you then personally, in terms of how do you, as a very busy guy who's got branches or tentacles, if you like, all over the world as well as rooted back in here, how do you look after your own mental health and well-being?
So in my 20s, it was a bit rocky. I did a lot of work on it. I had therapy and counselling through my 20s, just to make sure everything was in the right spaces. I got all those noises out of my head and all those boxes, and I reordered them and put them back in the right order in my 20s. And then I take care of myself, so physically I exercise most days. You can't really tell, I know. But I exercise most days. I'm fortunate that I've got the facilities to be able to do that. I meditate. I've done through my 20s. Not as regular, I used to do it every day now. Do it a couple of times a week. I also, I don't know, I'm used to I can compartmentalise my life quite easily. So my wife always said this, I had quite a complex work life when I was a CEO with 1,000 people. And when I come home the doors, I had 2 young kids. And so my mind could shift into that mode quite easily. And that was always my priority, was my wife and my family, and then space bar, then everything else. And so all of this doesn't mean that much to me. And I mean that with utmost respect. It's like the success and the money and the stuff is like, it matters to me that my family's in good shape. And my wife's a Scouser as well, so I'm never allowed to, basically she tells me what to do most of the time and I get on with it. So, so I think physical health is important. I think I've got a good network of friends and family. I'm in a mentoring group, so I meet, for the last 15 years, there's a thing called the YPO, which is about CEOs, and I meet 8 other CEOs every month, apart from the summer, and we coach each other about problems in our life, issues in our life around our work, our families. So that's incredibly powerful to be, 9 men that meet every month, and it's a structured way. I work with a coach, I've always worked with coaches on everything I'm working on. I have a brilliant EA that I wake up every day and she tells me where to go and what I'm doing, that organises my life as well. But I'm just really fortunate. I've got a lot of energy. It won't last forever. So while I've got it, I want to direct it at purposeful things. And I want to be full on and I want to be busy all the time. But actually, if it affects my home life, then I shut everything down. So I resigned as a CEO 5 years ago because my kids needed me. So I gave up to be at home with my kids for a couple of years. And I loved it, and it's the best priority, and I'm getting that back. But I also recognise I was in a position to be able to do that financially. But yeah, physical health's important. Having someone that, you know, doesn't believe all the hype of the success around in the house. Like my wife, I did a deal years ago, and we made a lot of money for our company. And I came home, and my wife was like, "Oh, the bins need taken out." And it's exactly the right reaction. Like, it doesn't matter, the bins still need taken out. Your kids' nappies need changing, and that. It's like they don't care what I do in the other parts of my life. So I think I've got a really normal life in that regard. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, helps you keep grounded, absolutely. We've got a couple of minutes left because Kerry's just given me the warning. Have we got one question from anybody to Jason?
I've never met my dad as well, so if my dad's out there and he wants to put his hand up, it'd be lovely to meet him at 54, you know what I mean? Oh, yes, who is it?
It's Kyle.
Dad.
It's Kyle.
I knew his name would come.
Front row in the pony every week, Kyle. Yeah, we were delighted with the run actually, but we didn't expect it, if we're being honest. So again, we're trying to bring a culture. We've talked a lot about this. I think I've done a bad job at communicating this. What I care about is the underlying performance of the football and how good we're playing. Because football, you don't always win. The best team doesn't always win. But if you create a culture where you're focused on doing the right things, then over time it evens out and you get the rewards for what you're doing. So we shouldn't have got promoted the first season. We gave ourselves 3 years to get promoted, but we got really lucky. But I'd rather be lucky in life than be, you know, than the hard work that it requires to have consistent time. So, you know, but we never got too carried away with it. We knew it was always going to be hard, but all the data said we shouldn't have got promoted. So, but, you know, there's that run of 3 games where we won in extra time and stuff. It's like, you couldn't write that. It's so improbable. Yeah, it was amazing, right? So what I always do is, the conversation about my wife is like, I've always had this thing where you're never as good as people say you are, and you're never as bad. And as long as you sort of don't get too carried away, you sail through the middle of life. So I've had periods in my life where people are saying, you're brilliant at stuff, and I've had people, actually, since I've come back to Grimsby, saying you're not brilliant, and other words associated with that, mostly that, actually. And I just know that when I go home, I'm that person, I'm still me, and I don't get to, so I enjoy the good stuff, and I worry about the bad times, but my range of where I go emotionally is quite narrow, consciously, and it's a learned thing. Because if you think you're as good at when you get promoted, we knew that wasn't all about us. That was about luck and about timing. But also, when it was going badly last year, I also knew we weren't as bad as people were saying we would be all right. And I know it's hard when people haven't got the information and data because people come to the game to be emotional. So I think it's really important that you sail steady course through the middle of this in life if you can. And that's the thing about learned behaviours and learning how you take care of yourself to make sure your emotions don't sway you too far either way. But it's fucking brilliant, wasn't it, as well? It was. And I remember having a conversation with Debbie, and she'd said, oh, bloody hell, you'd got into the playoffs. And she'd said, but yeah, we've got to go away at least twice. I said, yeah, but you never know. You never know in football. A last-minute winner, a last-minute equaliser, that momentum that builds to go into the next game, we're never going to beat Notts County away, are we?
The Grimsby thing is, I've been underestimated my whole life. And I like those odds with everything I do. So if I walk into, you know, when I used to have like New York private equity, I'd started in my 20s, I'd go over there looking like this, a bit scruffy, turn unshaven, and people always have low expectations of you, and you can bat it out of the park. So I've always been informal, but I'm super ambitious, I'm super prepared for everything I do. You know, I outwork anyone, and people don't see that, and I love that as well. I like the idea of like being an underdog in every part of my life. So I think that was a good story as well. I think what we did that year.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Carl, for that. So I think we're at just about our time now. I think it's fascinating in terms of you're managing your emotions and relating that back to something that Pam actually said on the stage this morning. The stuff that she's learned from NAViGO is how to manage her emotions, how to know when she's going into crisis. It's a metaphor for managing your whole life, I think, in terms of just making sure you're in that sort of range.
By the way, just on that quickly, I did an animation on this. If you Google YouTube, and Jason Stockwood and your emotion. I did an animation with my kids in lockdown about how to show my kids about what your emotional responses are. It's worth having a look at, actually. So if you go on YouTube and just Google Jason and this, and it's called Your Beautiful Brain. It's like a 10-minute animation I did for my kids, but it sort of explains that as well about where your emotions come from and how you can manage them as well. It might be useful, might be
Brilliant.
interesting.
Yeah, thank you. We'll do that. This is being live streamed on YouTube, so you never know.
Oh, is
People
it?
might be clicking away now.
You can tell me that till afterwards. I wouldn't have sworn as much if you'd said that. Go ahead, go ahead.
I know you want. No, I just wanted to say on behalf of all of us, a massive thank you. I think your story is sort of inspiring, and it's certainly got me thinking about the connection between good mental health and well-being and everything in life. And just the thought that a mental health organisation and a football club could have that sort of synergy between them in terms of how they work and how they sort of, how they connect with each other at that level, and how we're all a part of a community and a sort of and an ecosystem and working together. I just think it's really fascinating. So I'm sure the audience want to say thank you, and I just want to say a personal thank you for coming and spending your time with us
That's
today.
a pleasure. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Simon and Jason. Absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Right, I've got a very important announcement to make, and this relates to Gardner Hill's prize draw. So the first prize, the chocolate hamper, raffle ticket number 50, Georgina Thomas, if she's still with us. Second prize, £25 High Street voucher, number 22, Sonia Corrigan. And third prize, £10 Garden Centre voucher, ticket number 19, Donna McGrath. Can you collect your prizes from the Gardner Hill stand in the front foyer? And congratulations, thank you. Right, after that really entertaining and really informative conversation, we're now going to move on to say farewell to our community and staff reps who are stepping down following this year's elections, and to welcome our new representatives. We did a little bit of it this morning, but I'm conscious that not everybody was with us for the morning session. So I've already thanked Joe Keane, Pam Callison and Gertrude Wadea for their sterling work as your elected non-executive directors on the board. But I'd also now like to thank the other representatives who've contributed so much to the work of the membership board and who've ensured that your voices as staff and as service users have been heard loud and clear. So the people that we're saying goodbye to in their representative roles are John Tucker, Community Rep. Another community representative, Zachary Kellerman. And Jim Mathias, your staff representative. Thanks to all of you, to each of you individually, and we've actually arranged for each of you to receive a small gift as a token of your appreciation, and Julie Gray will contact you about that. So thank you so much for all of the work and the time and support that you've given. So now we're going to welcome formally, as part of the AGM, our new community and staff reps. And they're not going to come up on stage, so we'll, again, just stand up where they are within the auditorium. So again, we'll take the community reps first, and the first community representative, who will also be the community non-executive director on the board, is Claire Avery. The second community representative is Kelly Harrison. The third is Rachel Ogley, who's been re-elected. The fourth is Paul Richardson, a new community representative. And the final community rep is Richard Rudd. So thanks to everybody who actually stood for the election. It was really good. We had a really strong election this year, so thank you for showing your interest in taking on those roles. And now for our new staff representatives. Two of these people are continuing in the role. That's Jo Keane, who will also continue in her role as the staff non-executive director. And also congratulations to Rebecca Myers, also re-elected as a staff representative. And then we have three new staff representatives this year. We have Ross Albury from Talking Therapies. Hi, Ross. We have Rebecca Ardis from the safeguarding team. Hi, Rebecca. And we have Toby Ben Babatunde representing the BAME network. Hi, Toby. So again, thanks to all members of staff who stood for election, and I really do hope that all the representatives are going to find their role really rewarding and really enjoyable. And I'm sure that some of the outgoing representatives will be able to be like mentors in terms of helping you as you assimilate into that role. So thank you all very, very much, and I'm really looking forward to working with you all. We're now going to move on to presenting this year's Staff and Volunteer Awards. And at this point, I would like to invite Paul Darby and John Tucker to join me on the stage because they're going to be part of the presenting team. Right, so we've got 5 award categories this year, and I have the privilege of announcing the runners-up and the winners in 3 of the categories. So the first category that we're going to announce is the Newcomer Award, and we had joint runners-up in this category: Amber Ackroyd, Manager of SLC and Apollo Primary Care Network. And our second runner-up in this category was Sophie Bell, Nursing Assistant on Raharian. The winner in this category joined Meridian PCN late in 2023 as a peer support worker. In the interview, they advised that this was not a role that they'd ever done before, but they actually wanted to make a difference. You would never have thought it. They have such an ability to make you feel heard. She's a natural to the role and applies experience to ensure service users feel respected, supported, and heard. We really appreciate her for making the leap, as it has benefited us way more than it has benefited her. Thank you for being what we need in our service, a compassionate person who really understands the needs and wants of our service users, and thank you for advocating as you do. The winner of the Newcomer Award is Kerry Walker, Peer Support Worker in Meridian. The next category in the Staff Awards is Star Individual, and the joint runners-up in this category were Tracy Whitaker from the Performance and Information team and Sarah Ayers, A-Y-E-R-S, Sarah Ayers. The winner of this category, despite not being 100% in his own health, never grumbles or moans, but goes above and beyond to support service users in rehabilitation to learn new skills in practical DIY. Nothing is ever too much trouble for him, and if he can help, he most definitely will. He's highly thought of by both the service users and respected by the rehab staff. He picks staff up and drops them off to and from work, so he acts as a chauffeur, and he can also be relied upon to come in early or stay late than his home time, always smiling and willing to cover any shift when needed. The winner of the Star Individual Award is Rob Sykes. final award I'm presenting is the Star Team. And the joint runners-up in this category were the Estates and the Grounds Maintenance Team, and the other runner-up was the Domiciliary Care Team in Nurtrio. The winners in this category is a team that has provided consistency and quality care to all of its service users for many years, since its inception in 1999. They have care coordinated some of NAViGO's more complex and vulnerable service users, helping them through whatever life has thrown at them and being a beacon of support regardless of what is happening at any given time. The winners of the Star Team is Assertive Outreach. Right, I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Paul Darby, who will be presenting the Shine a Light Annie Darby Award.
Thank you, Jane. So, another year. The Annie Darby Shine a Light Award, and I can assure you the light still shines bright. This year's winner is a support worker, and the member and service user who nominated him stresses this. He listens, he offers care and support, he is a shoulder to cry on, he is like the brother I never had. He shines bright in my life. Please put your hands together for Kyron Ayres.
Now going to hand over to John Tucker, one of our community representatives, who will first of all present the Volunteer of the Year Award, and then he's also got the honour of announcing the winner of the display board competition. So over to you, John.
Here we go. The Unsung Hero Award goes to Liz Scott. Who's probably helping somebody somewhere. Shall I throw it up?
Is she there?
Yes, she is. Can I just say to those people who weren't elected, you will be still wanted. I wasn't elected the first time round, but somebody dropped out, so I stepped up. And there are loads of different jobs that we would like members to be involved in. The more members can be involved in things, the better. Thank you. Volunteer of the Year was awarded to Pam Callison. Pam works very hard for service users. One of the things she does is that she goes into the wards on a Friday morning and talks to service users in the wards and makes sure that all the food is superb. Turn this round. Hang on. Here we are, Pam.
Thank you, John. Thank you. And now John is going to stay on stage and he's going to announce the results of the competition for judging the best display board. Over to you, John.
This was a very difficult task, and I'd like to thank the reps for judging. It's always difficult because there are so many fantastic stands. This year, it was very hard. Some fantastic stands. Thanks to everyone for the exceptional innovation, ideas and hard work. I know that some people have spent weeks over these, and it was very difficult to pick the winner. Now, we haven't picked one winner, we've picked two. The two winners, Springboard and Wise. I don't think I'm going to saw it in half for you, but I think you'll have to share it. You've done really well. It's exceptional things. Yeah. It's done fairly because the reps do it. Well done, folks. Well done, everybody. Well done.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you. So 2 winners this year for the display board, and I'm not surprised the reps found it really hard to pick a single winner. There were some fantastic display boards. Right, we're now going to move on to announce the winner of the Project of the Year, and I would like to welcome Laura Johnson and Katie Fletcher from Young Minds Matter, just to say a few words on the progress of RISE. That was the project that you voted as winner last year, and then Laura and Katie get the honour of opening up this year's box before I announce the winners. So over to you, Laura and Katie, just to say a few words.
Thank you. So yeah, we just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who voted for us last year. We've really enjoyed the challenge of creating a project, and yeah, it's going really well.
Yeah, it's going really well. We're excited to see where it goes next, and we're so proud of the young people that are involved. And we just want to say a big thank you to our team at Young Minds Matter, because their support has been so valuable to us, and we couldn't do it without any of them.
Yeah, so on to this year's winner.
Yeah.
Oh, the key. Shall I hold it?
You need the key. We've got one clear winner, which is my menopause mattress. Yeah, we might just confirm it with a count. It's very close between 2 and 3, but I think it was certainly the low stimulus. Thank you all so much for coming today to our family AGM. I'm very conscious it's been a very full and busy day for everybody, and therefore I'm not going to hold you up for long. But as you can imagine, there are a lot of thank yous that need to be made to those who've made today happen and for those who've participated in today's programme. I would like to thank Jim, Darren, Pam, Rebecca and Claire for sharing their stories this morning, and to thank Joe for so ably facilitating the seminar. I'd like to thank Jason and Simon for their conversation about pride in our community. And I'd like to thank all of the staff here at the auditorium, not just for their support today, but also in the lead up to the AGM. We couldn't do it without them. Thanks to Steve and Alex of Brink Marketing for doing the live streaming. And thanks as always to the tremendous team at Tukes for the fabulous lunch. And also thanks to the ever generous Clive Danes for doing all of the photography. So thank you to all of you. Thanks to everyone in the Corporate Affairs team for all the work over the last few months in organising today and for marshalling us all so successfully during the event and keeping me on point as well. And thanks to all of our staff, our members, our carers and service users who took the time and trouble to build and man those display boards. And a final thank you to all of you for coming today to celebrate another successful year for the NAViGO family. And here's to doing it all again next year. Thank you all very much.